I found out my fiancé had a secret family 3 weeks before our wedding. Even now, saying that sentence out loud feels unreal. Like I am talking about a movie I watched half asleep instead of the life I was actually living. At that point, I had been with Daniel for almost 6 years. We met when I was 27 and he was 31, at a coworker's birthday dinner where neither of us really knew anyone except the host. He was one of those people who seemed calm in a room full of noise, not flashy, not loud, not trying too hard, just steady, warm, attentive in a way that made you feel like if he asked how your day was, he actually wanted the real answer. That was his whole brand, really. Safe, stable, kind, and I fell for it completely. For years, Daniel built this version of himself brick by brick. He remembered tiny things, like how I hated raw onions and always cried at dog rescue videos. He brought my mom flowers when she got out of the hospital. He drove 2 hours in the rain to help my brother move apartments. He would leave little notes in my purse before work, stupid sweet things like, "You are stronger than you think," or "Dinner tonight, no excuses, I miss your face." He made me feel chosen. That matters, because before Daniel, I had spent most of my 20s with men who were emotionally unavailable, allergic to commitment, or mysteriously not ready for anything real. Daniel felt different. He talked about the future early, but not in a creepy way, more like he had always known what he wanted and was relieved to find someone who wanted the same things. Marriage, a house, maybe kids if life worked out that way. He said he had been through enough chaos already and wanted peace now. Looking back, that line is almost funny. He told me his childhood was complicated. His dad left when he was young. His mom was emotionally distant. He had a younger sister he wasn't close to. He said family for him was a sore subject, and I respected that. I didn't push. I met his mother twice in 6 years. Twice. That should have been my first alarm bell. But when you're in love, you can turn sirens into background music. The first time was about a year into our relationship. She was polite, cold, and weirdly formal, like she was interviewing me for a job she didn't think I deserved. The second time was after we got engaged. She hugged me stiffly, said, "Take care of each other," and left after 20 minutes because she wasn't feeling well. No father, no sister, no cousins, no old friends from back home. Whenever I asked, there was always some explanation. His sister was traveling. His dad was out of the picture. His extended family was messy. His old friends were all over the place. And because he showed up so reliably in every other way, I filled in the blanks for him. My parents adored him. My niece called him Uncle Daniel before we were even engaged. He spent Christmas Eve with us. He grilled in my parents' backyard in the summer. He became part of us. So when he proposed on a quiet stretch of beach during a weekend trip, I said yes before he even finished the question. For almost a year after that, I was floating. Wedding planning wasn't exactly fun, but it was ours. We argued about flowers and guest lists and table layouts like every other engaged couple. It all felt normal. If there were signs during that year, they were small enough to ignore. He got more protective of his phone. He started taking random work calls outside. He occasionally disappeared for an hour or two with vague explanations. Client emergency. My mom needed something. I had to help a friend. The lies were never big at first. That's what makes them dangerous. 3 weeks before the wedding, I took a Friday off work because I was overwhelmed and needed a day to myself. Daniel thought I was in the office until 6. He left that morning in a hurry, kissed my forehead, and told me he might be late because he had a vendor issue to handle. Around 2:30, I drove to a shopping center near our apartment to pick up dry cleaning and grab coffee. Then I saw him. Daniel was standing across the parking lot, and he wasn't alone. At first, my brain did not process what I was seeing, because sometimes shock comes in layers. It was Daniel, my fiancé, in the blue button-down I had ironed that morning. He was holding the hand of a little girl, maybe 4 or 5 years old, with dark curls and pink sneakers. Next to them stood a woman around my age, with a diaper bag on one shoulder and a baby on her hip. The woman leaned into Daniel and said something. He laughed. Then the little girl jumped at him, and he scooped her up so naturally, so automatically, that I got this sick, electric feeling in my stomach. Not because he was good with kids, because this did not look like a man casually helping someone. This looked like a father. This looked like a husband. I froze beside my car, staring. He kissed the little girl on the head. Then he touched the woman's lower back as they walked toward the clinic entrance. That specific gesture almost destroyed me more than anything else. It was intimate, in a practiced, unthinking way. The kind of touch people use when they belong to each other. I wish I could tell you I marched over there and demanded answers. I didn't. I ducked behind a car like a stranger stalking my own life, and started shaking so hard I had to sit down before my legs gave out. I sat there trying to explain it away. Maybe it was his sister. Maybe those were his niece and nephew. Maybe the woman was a cousin. Maybe there was some innocent explanation. But then they came back out. Daniel carried the baby seat. The woman adjusted the little girl's jacket. And the little girl looked up at him and said, "Daddy." I heard it, not imagined it, not guessed it. He smiled and opened the car door for them. And the world I had been living in split clean down the middle. I don't remember driving home. I remember sitting on the bathroom floor trying not to throw up. I remember staring at our wedding invitation sample on the counter, both our names in gold script, and thinking, who are you? Because in that moment, the biggest horror wasn't even that he might be cheating. It was that I had absolutely no idea who I was marrying. When he got home that night with takeout and his usual tired smile, I had already cried everything dry. What was left was cold. He walked in and said, "Hey, baby, long day. You look pale." I looked at him standing in our kitchen with noodles in one hand and his keys in the other and thought, "You should win awards." I said, as evenly as I could, "How was the vendor issue?" He didn't blink. "Annoying. We fixed it. Why?" I nodded. "No reason." That was the first moment I truly understood what kind of liar he was. Not messy, not impulsive, skilled. I didn't confront him that night. When your reality cracks open, sometimes you don't run toward answers. Sometimes you get very, very quiet. Because some instinct deep inside you knows that if you show your cards too early, the person across from you will burn the whole deck. So I acted normal. I ate 2 bites of food. I asked about his day. I let him kiss my shoulder while we watched TV. Then I lay awake beside him until nearly 4 in the morning, listening to him breathe, wondering how many nights he had slept peacefully next to me while carrying an entire second life in his pocket. The next day, I started digging. And once I started, everything came apart faster than I was emotionally prepared for. First, I checked our phone bill. We were on the same account, but I had never had a reason to look closely before. There were dozens of repeated calls and texts to one number. Late at night, early in the morning, during work hours. I copied the number down. Then I searched his laptop. Nothing obvious. Daniel was careful. Too careful. No incriminating emails, no saved photos, no weird folders. But his browser history had gaps. Entire blank stretches. He used private mode. That made my skin crawl. I searched the phone number online and got nothing useful, so I paid for one of those background search sites. The number was connected to a woman named Vanessa. I found her social media an hour later. Private account. But her tagged photos were public. My hands went numb by the third one. There he was, Daniel, standing next to Vanessa at a kid's birthday party, one arm around her shoulder, the little girl in his arms, both of them smiling at the cake. The caption read, "Happy 5th birthday to sweet Sophia. Love this beautiful family." Beautiful family. I stared at that caption until the words stopped looking like language. There were more. Christmas photos, pumpkin patch photos, beach trips, and in several of them, there was the baby too. Not just one child, two. My fiancé did not have a side relationship. My fiancé had an entire family. I made this awful sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob because my body genuinely did not know what emotion to choose. Then I kept scrolling. And that was when I found the thing that turned my pain into something sharper. Vanessa wasn't the only woman. On an older tagged post from a neighborhood barbecue, someone commented, "Still can't believe what happened with Marisol. Wild." Marisol. I clicked. The account was barely active, but there were old photos. Daniel, with another woman. Different face, same smile. Same arm around the waist. In one photo, she was visibly pregnant. The caption read, "Before everything changed." My heart started hammering. I spent the next 4 hours piecing together a timeline that made me physically cold. Before Vanessa, there had been Marisol. And after more searching, I found public records showing Daniel had once shared an address with her. There was also a custody filing. Custody. There was another child. At that point, I had to stand up and walk circles around my apartment because I genuinely thought I might black out. It was no longer a hidden affair. It wasn't even a hidden family. It was a pattern, a system, a whole architecture of deception built across years, women, homes, and children. And somehow, I had walked right into the center of it wearing white. That night, I sat on the couch while Daniel slept in our bed and made a list. Not because I'm some revenge mastermind. Because heartbreak had turned into survival instinct. I needed facts. I needed proof. I needed to know whether Vanessa knew about me. I needed to know whether Marisol knew about Vanessa. And I needed to know how many versions of this man existed. For the next week, I became someone I didn't recognize. I smiled through cake tastings. I answered wedding emails. I nodded when my mother called about centerpieces. I let Daniel kiss me in front of friends. Then, when he wasn't looking, I documented everything. I took screenshots, downloaded public records, saved phone logs, photographed mysterious keys in his gym bag, tracked receipts tied to Vanessa's neighborhood. Then one Tuesday, I followed him. He drove 30 minutes out, bought diapers, juice boxes, and children's medicine, then went to a townhouse complex. Vanessa opened the door before he knocked. The little girl ran into his arms. I watched from 2 houses down with tears blurring my vision, and felt something inside me harden forever. A couple days later, I messaged Vanessa. I agonized over that message for 3 hours. Deleted it, rewrote it, almost sent something furious. Then I realized if she was another victim, rage aimed at her would only help him. So I kept it simple. Hi, my name is Elena. I believe we may both be involved with the same man, Daniel Reyes. I am engaged to him. I know how insane that sounds. I have proof. If you are willing to talk, please respond. She replied 9 minutes later. Who is this really? I sent a photo of Daniel asleep in our bed from the previous weekend, with the date visible on my lock screen. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Then she wrote, "This isn't funny." I replied, "I know, I am so sorry." She called me immediately. At first, she was furious. She thought I was lying, a stalker, an ex, a jealous woman making things up. Then I told her details no outsider could know. His car, his scar near his left knee, the watch my parents gave him, the song he always played on road trips. Silence. Then I heard her crying. Quiet crying. The kind people do when they don't want their children to hear. Vanessa told me she had been with Daniel for 7 years. 7. Longer than me. They weren't legally married, but he was the father of both her children. He told her his work required travel. He said his family was complicated. He promised marriage when life settled down. He had told her I was his coworker. Not even an affair, just an inconvenience made small enough to dismiss. When I told her we were getting married in less than 3 weeks, she made this broken noise that still haunts me. Then she said, "You're not the only other one." I stopped breathing. "What?" She said, "A woman contacted me last year. I thought she was lying. Daniel convinced me she was unstable. Her name was Marisol." There it was, the puzzle pieces sliding together. Vanessa gave me Marisol's number. When I called, she answered like someone who had been expecting bad news for years. She didn't gasp, didn't question me. She just said, "So he finally did it again." Again. Marisol had been with Daniel before either of us. They had a son together. He used to disappear for work trips. When she got suspicious, he called her paranoid. When she found proof of cheating, he cried and begged. She took him back twice. The third time, she left. Then came the twist I never saw coming. She asked, "Did he ever tell you his real name?" I felt the blood drain from my face. "What do you mean, real name?" She gave me another surname, one I had never heard. I searched it, and there he was. Same face, same eyes, same man. Different legal records. Turns out, Daniel Reyes was only part of his full legal name, just shortened enough to make himself harder to trace. Under the full name, a whole new layer appeared. Debt cases, civil complaints, business disputes, and buried deep, an old marriage license. Marriage license. To a woman named Teresa. At that point, I had gone beyond crying. Reality had become too insane for normal emotions, so I contacted Teresa too. 2 days later, she responded, "I can talk tonight after my kids go to sleep." Kids, plural. I nearly laughed from the sheer insanity of it all. That night, the 4 of us ended up on a group call. Me, Vanessa, Marisol, Teresa. 4 women, 1 man, 1 massive lie. That night, the 4 of us compared timelines, addresses, excuses, gifts, lies, and identical phrases he had used on all of us. He told all of us his mother was ill whenever he needed sympathy. He told all of us he was not good at opening up. He told all of us some version of, "You're the only person who ever made me want a real home." Same pet names, same apology speeches, same fake vulnerability. The sickest part? Some of the dates overlapped so perfectly that while he was texting me about flower arrangements, he was apparently at Vanessa's house helping Sophia with a school project. While he was telling Vanessa he was stuck in traffic, he was with me touring our wedding venue. While he was begging Marisol years earlier not to leave him, he was already laying the groundwork with Vanessa. He wasn't just dishonest, he was industrial. By the end of that call, we weren't strangers anymore. Not friends exactly, but bonded by the same humiliation. Then Teresa dropped the next bomb. "He's probably doing this for money, too." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She explained that during their marriage, Daniel constantly leaned on her financially, borrowed for business investments, asked for emergency help, used their son's medical issues to guilt her into sending cash. Suddenly, everything made sense. The temporary loan I gave him, the vendor deposits I covered, the money he promised to repay, the way he delayed combining finances until after the wedding. I checked our wedding account after that call and nearly stopped breathing. Almost $18,000 was gone. Not all at once, drained slowly over months, in small increments disguised as vendor payments and event deposits. Some were real, some absolutely were not. I stared at the statements with ice in my veins. He wasn't just planning to marry me while living another life. He was financing his lies with my future. That was the moment revenge stopped being emotional and became practical. Until then, some part of me still wanted to confront him privately, hear his explanation, watch him try to make it make sense. But after the money, that was over. He had lied to me, humiliated me, used me, and he would keep doing it forever unless someone stopped him. So we made a plan. First, I quietly moved what remained of the wedding money into an account he couldn't access. Then I met with a lawyer. She helped me document everything, advised me not to confront him until I had secured my accounts, valuables, and legal position. So I did. Changed passwords, transferred savings, removed important documents from the apartment, moved family jewelry to my mother's house, backed up every screenshot, and smiled through dinner while Daniel talked about tux fittings. Have you ever sat across from someone actively betraying you while they ask if you want red velvet or vanilla for the groom's cake? It changes your brain chemistry. Then Vanessa gave us the idea. Sophia's birthday party was scheduled for the weekend before my wedding. Daniel had promised to be there. He had also promised me he'd spend that same day finalizing seating charts with my parents. Classic. Vanessa said, "What if he had to choose in public?" At first, I thought she meant at the birthday party. I was wrong. What we planned was bigger. Much bigger. We let him keep lying. We let him believe everything was still working. And I continued with the wedding. Not because I was going to marry him, because I wanted everyone he had charmed, every friend, relative, and family member, to see exactly who he was before he could rewrite the story. The week before the wedding was one of the most psychologically exhausting experiences of my life. My mother was emotional and excited. My father kept joking about losing his daughter. My friends planned bridal events and sent me memes telling me to relax. Meanwhile, I was coordinating with my lawyer, 3 other women, and one quietly furious maid of honor named Priya. Priya was the only friend I told before the wedding. She cried with me for 10 minutes, then wiped her face and said, "Okay, let's ruin him correctly." We spent nights organizing evidence, photos, timelines, financial statements, custody records, marriage documents, messages, everything factual, everything clear, everything impossible to dismiss as a misunderstanding. Teresa agreed to attend. Vanessa agreed to attend. Marisol agreed to attend. Not as a screaming mob, as witnesses. Then the wedding day arrived, and I felt eerily calm. Not happy, not sad, just beyond panic. Hair, makeup, dress, photos, all the rituals of joy wrapped around a bomb only a handful of us knew was there. Daniel looked radiant. That still haunts me. He looked genuinely pleased with himself. He kissed my cheek before the ceremony and said, "We made it." I had to resist the urge to laugh. The venue was beautiful. Garden ceremony, white flowers, warm golden light. My family sat crying in the front row. His mother sat stiff as ever. I looked at her once and wondered how much she knew. Then the music started. I walked down the aisle toward the man I had loved with my whole heart, and for one split second, I felt the ghost of what this day was supposed to be. The life I thought I was getting. The children we might have had. The future I believed in. Then I saw Priya near the front. She gave me the tiny nod we had agreed on, and the ghost disappeared. The officiant began. We got through the opening lines. Then it was time for personal vows. Daniel went first. Of course he did. And if I hadn't already known the truth, his vows would have destroyed me. He spoke about loyalty, honesty, partnership, building a home, choosing each other every day. People were crying. My mother was openly sobbing. Even I had to admit, the man could perform sincerity like he invented it. Then it was my turn. I unfolded my vows, looked him directly in the eyes. He smiled, and I began. "Daniel, When I met you, I thought the best thing about you was how safe you felt. Guest smiled softly. Then I continued. I trusted you with my future, my family, my heart. I trusted you when you said honesty mattered more to you than anything. His smile shifted. Barely, but enough. Then I said, 3 weeks ago, I found out that while planning this wedding with me, you were living a second life with another woman and 2 children. The entire garden went silent. Daniel's face turned white. I kept going. Then I found out about Marisol and her son. Then Teresa, your legal wife. Then the money you stole. Then the lies you told every woman you've ever touched. Someone gasped. My father stood halfway up. Daniel whispered, Elena. Low. Warning. I looked at him and said into the microphone, No, you don't get to manage this. Then Priya stepped forward and handed me the evidence folder. I turned toward the side entrance and nodded. The doors opened, and they walked in. Vanessa, Teresa, Marisol, one after another. Daniel looked like his soul left his body.
You could hear the audience reacting in waves. People recognized immediately that this was not some misunderstanding. Vanessa stood beside me with tears in her eyes and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "You told me she was just your coworker." Teresa held up the marriage records. "You never even finished divorcing me before starting this circus." Marisol stepped forward, calm and furious. "Every time we caught him, he said we were crazy. Turns out we were just comparing notes too late." Daniel's mother sat frozen. My mother was crying for an entirely different reason now. Daniel finally found his voice, and like every liar caught in public, he didn't confess. He controlled. "It's not what it looks like. They're twisting things. I was trying to handle complicated situations. Elena, please, not here." Not here. As if there had ever been a place convenient for him. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. Then I delivered the final blow. I held up the wedding account statements. And while planning this wedding, he siphoned nearly $18,000 from our wedding fund. That detonated the room. If the betrayal shocked everyone, the theft enraged them. My father lunged so fast, 2 cousins had to restrain him. Guests were shouting. Daniel started talking over everyone. And then, his mother stood up. For the first time in years, she spoke with force. "Daniel, enough! Stop lying!" Everything froze. He turned to her like he'd been slapped. She was shaking, but she kept going. "I covered for you for years. I told myself it wasn't my place. I told myself you would fix it, but this—" She looked around at all of us. "This is evil." Evil. Hearing his own mother say it hit harder than anything else. Daniel started crying then. Real tears. Or maybe just panic. He stammered that he was overwhelmed, that things got out of control, that he never meant to hurt anyone. But here's what I learned. When people like that say things got out of control, what they mean is, people found out. I took off my ring. My hands were steady. I placed it on top of his vows. Then I said into the microphone, "You built your life out of betrayal. Now you get to live in the ruins of it." And I walked away, straight down the aisle, wedding dress dragging behind me, Priya at my side. My entire fake future collapsing in chaos behind us. I wish I could tell you that was the end. It wasn't. It was only the public ending. The private fallout lasted months.
There were legal letters about the stolen money. There were manipulative voicemails. There were crying messages from unknown numbers. Then angry messages.
then philosophical messages, then "I just want closure" messages. I never responded directly again. He tried to salvage his reputation, of course. He told people I staged everything out of jealousy. He claimed he had been separated in spirit. He said the money issue was a misunderstanding. He blamed trauma, stress, his childhood, mental health. But the evidence was too overwhelming. Too many women, too many children, too many timelines, too many documents. Too many people had watched the truth walk into that ceremony. And the most satisfying part? The consequences didn't stop with the wedding. Vanessa left him for good. Teresa finalized the divorce he had avoided for years and pursued what she was owed. Marisol revised custody agreements with stronger protections. I recovered part of the stolen money through legal channels. And because the evidence trail was so extensive, his professional reputation took a hit too. Nothing dramatic, no handcuffs, no public scandal on television. Just the quieter kind of consequence that follows a man when enough people stop believing him. Eventually, the calls stopped. Then 8 months later, I ran into him by accident outside a courthouse after one of the financial hearings. He looked older. Not dramatically, just diminished. Like life had finally stopped rearranging itself around his lies. He saw me, and I recognized that old instinct in his eyes, that reflex to pull me into one more emotional conversation where somehow I would end up comforting him for destroying me. He said, "I did love you, you know." And I laughed, not because it was funny, because that sentence used to be enough to break me. Now it sounded pathetic. I looked at him and said, "Maybe you loved being loved by me. That's not the same thing." Then I walked away. And that was the real ending. Not the wedding, not the ring, not the exposure. That moment. The moment he no longer had access to my confusion. It took me a long time to understand what hurt most. It wasn't just the secret family, or the stolen money, or the wasted years. It was that he weaponized goodness itself. He used empathy like a crowbar. He found women who wanted to understand, and turned that understanding into cover. For a while, I was embarrassed by how completely I had believed him. I thought being deceived meant I had been foolish. Now, I know better. Being lied to by someone skilled at lying is not a failure of intelligence. Sometimes, it is simply proof that you loved honestly while they performed honesty as a costume. If there is any lesson in all of this, it is this. Patterns matter more than promises. Consistency matters more than chemistry. And when your instincts whisper that something is wrong, listen. Love should not require detective work. And the right person will never need you to ignore the truth in order to keep them.